little Robin Solomon is Brenda's great-granddaughter's little cousin. She is 3 years old, Robin Solomon. You'll need that tonight, won't you? Genesis 19. Genesis 19, verse number 1. As soon as I get there. Genesis 19, verse number 1. We're going to see the arrival of the two angels in Sodom. And we're going to see the treatment that the people of Sodom have for those two men. Of course, they don't know they're angels, so they're carrying on with their normal sin that they do. And we'll see what happens to Lot. I know we all know this, but it's good to be refreshed from time to time. And every time you go over something like this in our Bibles that you're pretty familiar with, there's always something that you can learn and add that you never thought of before. So in verse 1 it says, "Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed his face to the ground." So here you see, well, I need to back up for just a second. Remember, Lot had his choice, didn't he? In Genesis 13, he could go east and Abraham would go west or left or right and all this. And he looked over the plain and saw the valley of the Jordan, and it was well watered and there was grass everywhere and it was attractive to him. And he said, that's where I want to go. Really, in reality, he should have gave his senior the first choice, but he didn't. And so he pitched his tent near where? Sodom. But it's not long, apparently, before he moves his whole family into town. So Lot chose this valley. He pitched his tent toward Sodom, and like I say, it wasn't long before he moved into town. We have no idea that one day, he had no idea that one day these two angels would come to him. So it was a normal practice for him to sit outside the gate at night. And you think about this, in the daytime, if you conducted business, it was at the gate. That's where the elders met and all the people, and they did all contracts and all these kinds of business opportunities and buying and selling. And so all these things were done there. I saw something fascinating not too long ago. They did an archaeological dig at one of these old cities. It wasn't this one, but an old city. And they found these stone benches and the gate to the city. Their policy was to meet there, so whoever was in that village built these stone benches to sit on. Now, and then that's what they did at Sodom. I mean, they had their business during the day, but let me ask you something. Why is he there at night? Or in the evening? What purpose is that? There's not going to be any business being conducted, so what is he doing there? Have you ever thought about that? Here he is showing up. How long has he been doing this? Has he been doing this since he first got to Sodom, and he knows their sin? He knows that they have they're just eat up with sin. And so why is he doing that? What could be the purpose? I think we see the purpose, don't we? Anybody? Hey, he's trying to save these people that come visit into his town. And so he's saying to these angels, look, this isn't your place. This is not the kind of town you want to be in. I want you to come into my house. I'm going to feed you, and then I want you to spend the night and go your way the next morning. How would you like for somebody to tell you that? You come in my house, I'm going to feed you, I want you to spend the night with me, then I want you to go on. Maybe I have had that. I can't remember. So that's what's happening here. It's just so sad. And I know that he was a righteous man. And Sodom, all the sin that he was surrounded by, Lot, it vexed his soul, and we're going to see that here in just a minute. But still, why would you move your family, your daughters, and your wife into a place like that? I don't know. Maybe he thought he could help them. I don't know. We don't have any idea, but it's hard to imagine how this all could happen to him. But then I think, wait a minute. Can this happen in our lives today? Can it? Can we find ourselves living somewhere where there's nothing but a den of sin? And we wish we had never moved there? We want to move out? We think about it, isn't it? Maybe it doesn't happen to y'all. I have been in a situation where I wished I'd never been in that town. And so here's Lot. He's sitting at the gate of the city, and he meets these angels coming. But he doesn't know they're angels. To him, they're just strangers. And he's going to show hospitality. It reminds me of Hebrews 13 and verse 2, when the Hebrew writer is saying, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for some have what? Entertained angels without knowing it. And that's exactly what happened to him. That's exactly what he's doing. So those sitting at the gate in the daytime did all the usual business, but that's not this way. Lot is sitting here in the evening. This is not normal, but it may be normal for him. He's trying, I would say, protect visitors coming to the city because he knows what will happen to them. And we're going to see what would have happened to these angels. We'll get that firsthand. But first I want you to look at 2 Peter chapter 2. I want you to look at that right quick. 2 Peter chapter 2. As soon as I get there. 2 Peter chapter 2. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 6. Oh, I'm in 1 Peter. Hold on. 2 Peter chapter 2, beginning at verse 6. And if he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to destruction by reducing them to ashes, having made them an example to those who would live ungodly lives thereafter, and if he rescued righteous Lot, oppressed by the sensual conduct of unprincipled men, for by what we saw and heard, this righteous man, while living among them, felt his righteous soul being tormented day after day by their lawless deeds. And then if you go on, it says, then the Lord knows how to rescue the ungodly or the godly from temptation and keep the unrighteous under punishment. So I don't know what I would have done. What would you have done? How would you have handled it? There's not a dime's worth of difference between him and us. We're the same people. Heart beats the same way. We still have the same desires. And nothing changed except the car and the mode of transportation. Yes, sir?
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay.
I'm sorry?
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay.
Yeah, I understand, but you can pack up your suitcase and leave too, right? Yeah, you're right. Verse 2. Yes, sir.
Talking about that, here we are celebrating Pride Month.
Yeah, that's what I always think of when I...
But none of us have moved out.
Yeah, no. But we sure watch it on TV and we're bombarded by it, aren't we?
But the thing is, when you talk about not wanting, it's got to come in family and move, but we don't do that. It's our job to still, we're in the world, we're supposed, it's our job is to try to correct this, and what it needs to work on correcting this is all possible. Maybe that was his deal too, you couldn't tell.
Maybe so. Thank you. Verse 2. And he said, now behold, my lords, please turn aside into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. And then you may rise early and go on your way. They said, however, no, but we'll spend the night in the square. Well, that would have been a dangerous thing to do, wouldn't it? So Lot did the normal custom of the time. He's inviting these people who he doesn't know are angels into his home. He's going to give them food and water and wash their feet. And we see this many times in the life of Abraham, don't we? We see the same thing. In fact, remember when the angels went to Abraham before they came here to Sodom? That's what Abraham did. He fed them a meal and washed their feet. And so notice Lot rises up and goes, and he wants them to go on their way. And so imagine spending the night with someone and they tell you to be sure and go on your way in the morning. That ought to tell you something. So Lot, he didn't, to me, he didn't ask them what their business was. He didn't ask them how long you're going to stay in town. He didn't ask them why you want to go to the square to spend the night. Just come on in my house. So it seems like Lot, it's not being rude to tell them to leave early in the morning when they get through, when he gets through, when they wake up. But he's got a plan. He wants to get them out of town. He don't want them to be subject to the things that can happen. Like we're subject to the TV. Every day they have these commercials, and you'll be watching a commercial that you think, I mean, you'll be watching this show. I'm watching this Western, and here's these two men kissing, or two women kissing, and Pride Month and all that, and we're exposed to all this. And like Glenn said, he was too, but maybe he's trying to save people. I don't know.
I packed my suitcase and threw my cutlery, my TV, and
Yeah, me too. I think I would, but I don't know. Maybe God had something for him to do in that area. Verse 3, yet he urged them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house, and he prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. It's interesting, Abraham did that very same thing when they were on their way to Sodom, when they came by him to tell him that he's going to have a son, Isaac, next year, and he's 99 years old, and Sarah's 90. So verse 4 and 5. Before they lay down, now here's what really tears you up. This really gets you. It's really something. Before they lay down, the men of the city, now look who the men were, men of the city, surrounded the house, both young and old. All the men, in other words, young and old, and all the people from every quarter. So they came from all sides of the part of the town. They called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may have relations, or King James says, know them, so we can have sexual relations with them. There's no specific hour given in verse 4, but we see it's in the evening. It's before they're to go to sleep. So, I mean, it's well into the evening, and they may be fixing to go to bed. I don't know what exact time it was. But if you continue in verse 4 and we're thinking in our minds, we can see this clearly, can't we? We see, and it's frightening. As soon as the men of the city, both young and old, came from every part of town, they surrounded the house, bring them two people out. They're demanding this. The word spread quickly, so soon they had everybody. And when these predators, and that's what they are, they're a predator, and this evil is seen. And you can picture it in your mind. They're surrounded this home, and they surrounded Lot. In verse 5, they call to Lot and show who these people are and their sinful appetites on display. They want to know them. They want to have homosexual relations with them. They want to force them. You can see how they've fallen and were reprobates. They showed their physical desire and the danger, and they threatened Lot. And if he doesn't send them out, look at verse 9. Send them out of his home, and you can see their sin-sick soul. And it seems like they have no shame. I'm going to tell you something. What's going on today? They have no shame. These people today have no shame that we're surrounded by. You can say what you want, but they have no shame. And they have what I call a reprobate mind. And I tell you, I wish I had time. We'd just go to Romans chapter 1 and 2. Paul gives the steps to fall into a reprobate mind. You'll see that if you study Romans chapter 1 and 2. Verse 6 and 7. But Lot went out to them. He went out of the doorway and he shut the door behind him. And he said, please, my brothers, don't act wickedly. He's calling it like it is, isn't he? Wickedness, sin. Lot's trying to protect them. And he was careful when he shut the door behind. As he left, he's continued trying to protect them, to hold them back. Lot shows them their sin, wickedness. And verse 8. Now behold, I have 2 daughters. You know, you and I look at this and we go, what in the world? How could you possibly do this? But maybe they didn't want the daughters. Did they? Did they? They didn't want the daughters. Maybe he felt like I could say that. Or maybe he's just trying to put them off a little bit, trying to delay. I don't know, but either way, he offered his 2 daughters who have not had relations with a man. Please let me bring them out to you, and do to them whatever you like. Only do nothing to these men, inasmuch as they have come under my roof, or the shelter of my roof. I know what you're thinking. That's crazy. Offer your 2 daughters that you love. There's a lot more than we understand going on here. Yes, sir.
Reading that scripture, it seems to me that at some point he probably realized these were not ordinary.
Yeah, yeah,
He had to have realized that these were not just
yeah.
travelers who they really were, and as a result,
I think,
somebody meant by God.
yeah, I think you're going to see exactly when. The next verse, when they had to pull him back in and made them people blind and said, we're going to destroy this city, you need to get your family. That's when they knew it was up on them. He knew what was happening. I'm thinking like you too.
I just got a question. You may have this covered, I don't know, but up here in verse 8, it talks about these 2 daughters that who have not known a man.
Yeah.
But then a few verses down, it talks about the son-in-law who are married to these 2 daughters. How is that?
Well, I think that, let me,
4 daughters?
no, I think, let me get to the verse.
Well, anyway, I may
I mean, first of all, let's take verse 8.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that if you want to wait.
No, let's go ahead and do it. In verse 8, he said, I have 2 daughters that have not have relations with a man. Okay? Now, you remember when he went to the son-in-laws and he said, man, we got to get out of here? But I want you to look at verse 12. Let's see. I got to find out. Okay, there it is. In verse 14, Lot went out, so he went out. But everybody's blind, so, I mean, he's pretty safe going out. And he spoke to his sons-in-law who were to marry his daughters.
Says who had married.
Yeah, okay. The New American Standard, I don't know. Darrell, what is the American Standard version say? Huh? You don't have it? I think Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's David, it's kind of like when,
It's New King James.
you know, sometime when you have, like my daughter had, I was going to introduce my daughter to somebody and they were getting married. And sometimes I'd said to somebody, this is who my daughter-in-law is married, or this is going to be my son-in-law. I think that's the idea here.
It would be like Joseph and Mary.
Yeah, there you go, same way.
Joseph and Mary was too soft. Joseph, and the same thing as Mary.
Yeah.
They had not consummated the marriage.
Yeah,
This is probably of the same order.
yeah. Thank you.
But I've got another thing here that kind of bothers me is that I'm the man of the house. Will I send my daughter to a situation like this?
Yeah,
And then it goes in the over in Judges, it's the same thing. God had a concubine and the men surrounded the house for the same reason.
Yeah.
He sent his woman out to these people.
yeah,
I think that's a real, to me, in my mind, that is a real problem. Because the man has ingrained in us to protect our family.
yeah,
Yet, I'm going to send my daughters out to these people, or my women out to these people, and protect myself. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Then again, I'm not lying, I'm not in the situation.
yeah,
So this kind of shows, to me, a weakness or a mindset that's there that we don't have today.
yeah.
Maybe it's his faith was so big. Maybe his faith was so big that he knew that God would take care of him.
Maybe so. Plus, maybe it was just a stalling technique. We'll never know. We don't know. Yes, sir?
I got one more maybe.
Okay, another maybe.
Okay. Lot has lived in this town. Lot is living in this town.
Uh-huh.
He bound to know the desires of these men.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So,
He figures there's,
offering those daughters to those men, knowing their desires,
yeah,
that's almost like they saying, here's a can of corn, because they're not gonna want these daughters.
yeah, they're not. No.
They're not regular people. They gonna
I bet those son-in-laws weren't too happy.
You bet what?
I bet those son-in-laws weren't too happy.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good news for them, would it?
They're glad they weren't getting sent out.
Yeah. They're just glad they weren't sent out there. Yeah.
But also it shows the steps that we take. We have been tolerating adultery for so long on TV and different stuff. And now
Yeah.
look at us now, and that's the same way. Adultery is not the thing anymore. That's one more debased step that they took.
Yeah.
How low that they can go.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of.
That's,
We can see, we can put us in the gate right now. We can put us, the American people in the gate.
yeah,
And what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
Is the question.
that's right. And we're bombarded with evil so much. And remember when, it was little things 20, 30 years ago, and we got accustomed to it. And it's more and more, and we're getting accustomed to it, and now they're trying to get us accustomed to this other. You know what? You really hit it on the head. They're calling evil good and good evil. That's what we're faced today at the gate. I guess I gotta quit. I'd like to go on. I guess I'll quit. We'll pick it up at verse number 9 next time. Any other thing, comments, questions?
I just think, I'm going to go with my version.
Okay.
I'm going to choose that because it's less,
Well, in
less
this,
bothersome.
in this case, we don't know for sure. You're,
It says more than once that Lot is a righteous man.
yeah,
And that his faith is bigger than any of ours.
yeah. And his
So
soul,
it's something that we can't even fathom,
yeah,
his faith.
yeah. And his righteous soul was vexed
Right.
that he
So
had to deal.
I'm going to go with that because I don't want to look bad at Lot.